Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, Roid consumers and stat trackers. My name is Jared, and with me is a baseball player that I know, Ian.
That's me, swing and a miss.
Woo! Strike one. We will be your hosts for the episode. We are honored and grateful that you have joined us here at the game table. Today, we're at the feature table, where we will be looking at Flip Dynasty, designed by Scott Scorelander, artwork created by Tom Pennifold and Weirdson, and published by Scorelander Games.
Flip Dynasty is a 2 to 6 player baseball game where players become the next great general manager, building an all-star roster, or maybe not an all-star roster, signing players in free agency, drafting elite prospects, or retaining your already great or sub-great players. After building this super team, you will be on your way through the regular season trying to win as many games as you can and make the glorious, glorious playoff run of the century. The player who wins the most trophies via the regular season and postseason is named the greatest dynasty of all time of this game / Strike 2 and Strike 3. Let's review Flip Dynasty.
Wowzers. You struck out in the intro. That's not good.
Exactly.
Oh, man. All right, dude. So baseball means a lot of things to a lot of people.
Absolutely.
It's one of those weird sports that, like, I don't know. Obviously, a lot of people like it because there's a lot of money involved.
Yes.
But there's also a lot of people that could, like, if baseball ceased to exist tomorrow, would not care. Like, I'm talking about sports fans, not like, people that don't care anything about sports. Obviously, they would not care. But, like, there are sports fans that are like, I don't care if baseball disappeared. Who cares? Like, it's a very weird mix. So my question to you this week, Ian, is what does baseball mean to you?
Man, a good question. One, I grew up playing baseball, so I have that deep love in my heart for the game of baseball and what it is. And I think really what it comes down to, playing it and watching it, it is one of the greater team sports. They all say that, but obviously baseball, it can be a little smaller of a team than some of the other sports, but you have to have a complete team, especially to win. Yes, there are great players, especially even in the MLB. You look at teams that have one great player, they don't win championships. It's all about this team dynamic that is one that I always loved being a part of that team. And so when you're rooting for a team, especially in the postseason baseball is one of my favorite things to watch in all of sports. Playoffs, obviously, in any sport are great. But playoff baseball is a journey. And in October, I just remember being on the couch. You went through a whole season yourself, and then you finally get to watch the professionals kind of complete this journey throughout the months of the year. And it's so cool to see this. Oftentimes you see this team that was an underdog that really wasn't well known for much throughout the season, but then their pitching comes alive and the young talent that you've never even heard of is just hitting home runs and going 4 for 4 in big games. That's the type of stuff that I feel like you get in baseball that it doesn't necessarily compare to other sports. I love all sports. I watched all of them, but that's the one thing about baseball is you get these unsung heroes in games that are just fantastic to watch, and that feeling of bottom of the ninth, home run to end the game or to keep you in the game. All of these moments are just something that I've always enjoyed. So I don't know if there's one individual thing that, to answer your question, I just think it's this cumulative effect of all of these things that just keep me coming back year after year.
It's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
But what about you?
It's interesting. So I played like 1 year of soccer when I was 5 or 6 and then shifted to baseball because that's what my dad really wanted me to play. He grew up playing baseball, and if not for some life circumstances, probably would have played baseball his entire life. And it was very special to him, and he wanted it to be special to my brother and I. I sucked at baseball, man. I really did. Like really bad eyesight, and I couldn't see the ball really well. And so it did not work for me. So I played several seasons of it, and I hated playing baseball. But I don't know, man. There was something special about Dad grew up he was a Yankees fan, so I grew up a Yankees fan. It's not something where I jumped on a bandwagon. Like I feel like I was born into that.
Yeah.
And there was something special about sitting on the couch with Dad, rooting for Jeter to pull out another miracle that you can't replicate.
Yeah.
And, Dad would always say his favorite baseball line was, "It's never over till it's over." Every other sport is timed. Time will run out and the game is over. There's nothing you can do about it. But in baseball, each team has 27 outs. Mm-hmm. And what you do with those is up to you. So that part of it is very special. And now my dad's passed now. And so baseball doesn't mean a whole lot to me anymore.
Sure.
But I think that's like all things in life, right? Like there's things we love and kind of move out of it or whatever. And so,
yeah,
for me, it holds a special place for what it was for my relationship with my dad. But as a sport, I could take it or leave it.
No, I think generally, a lot of people do feel that way, and it can run long. They've changed a lot of rules recently to help with that. But the one thing that I always find fascinating is this kind of mental battle that happens every pitch.
Yep.
And it seems as a fan, you're like watching, it's like, oh, he's just throwing the ball. But no, it's like so much more than that. They look at tendencies. There's like this whole dynamic of studying players and then, what kind of cues are they tilting their glove a certain way that the batter is just always trying to get an advantage. So it's just fascinating things, even while playing too, of like, I played high school baseball, but you're not sitting there and studying how many times they hit the ball to the right side of the field. But like even during the game, I was always thinking, okay, well, he's hit the ball, like he's pulled the ball twice already. And so there was always this strategic element that I was always fascinated in as well. And so that was something that always kept me interested. But again, if you're watching from afar, like that, what does that matter to you? Not much. So like such as any sport, there's always these hidden details that are always fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, it has its spot. Like it is there. I agree with you about the intelligence of the game. And that's what makes it so fascinating in a way, because there's like this real casualness for baseball too, right? Where we're just going to go to a game.
You go to the ballpark,
we're going to eat a hot dog,
Yeah, I mean,
and if they hit the ball, it's exciting, but like otherwise we're just hanging out. Like I don't know any other sport where you just go and hang out at the ball field. Like everything else is part of like this overarching show. So it's fascinating.
My wife loves going to baseball. She doesn't like much about sports. Yeah, she loves going to a baseball game. Again, that environment. Like, you have the 7th inning stretch. You have, like, just casual things in between innings. And it's a very chill environment. Now, the playoffs is very different. But going to, like, it's like, 160, 180, whatever games. I mean, it's an insane amount of games.
It's
that you just casually go to one and you get, popcorn and a hot dog and a drink and you're just hanging out. It's great. So I think it's one of those experiences unless it's playoffs, I don't watch it on TV very regularly. Going to games is something, we have a minor league team here in Nashville. It's great. It's a great environment. Just go and hang out. I don't like watching on TV unless it's the playoffs. So even as a avid baseball fan,
it's hard.
Regular season is like whatever, like not a big deal,
Yeah.
Maybe towards the end of the year, but like those early spring training games, who cares? It's just for a good time. We don't care.
Yeah. It's hard to make one game count when you're doing 162 of them.
It's a lot. It's a lot of, it's too much. So, all
right. Well, one thing that is fascinating, no matter what sport you're talking about, everybody is sure, Ian, that they can be the general manager of their team and do a better job of building the roster than the current clown who's getting paid money to do it.
I mean, I often feel that way. So.
You do. You tell me all the time what you would do to the Titans and the Preds and whatever.
Hey, we finally have some people that have listened to me, though. Maybe my voice is being heard.
You are him. What can I say?
That's right.
But in this game, you are the general manager, and it is your job to create the 5 players needed to round out the team of destiny to create the next great dynasty in baseball. So you will play a certain number of seasons, however many seasons it takes, to earn the number of trophies required to win the game. And I say the number of trophies because that number does change depending on the amount of players. And so it's usually 8 or 7 or 6, just depending on your player count. But what you'll do is you'll go through a season. This is all about drafting in a couple of different ways. And then you will compete to see who has earned the most wins in the regular season, who's earned the most wins in the playoffs. And then we move into a little bit of off-season action where we got to pay some players or get rid of them. And move those prospects up. So I'm going to go quickly through what a season looks like, and then we can get back to it, because a season is really the entire game until something like 7 trophies. So the first phase of every season starts with drafting new players in free agency. Players have a dollar amount that they will cost when you first sign them. They will have a position that they play. They will have a special ability. And they will have at the bottom 2 separate types of wins. What's one side on the left is called the base wins, and the right side is called the max wins. These will usually be 2 different numbers, and there will be open squares with different dice icons in them. We'll come back to that in just a second. So you'll take one player. You will decide to either sign that player or discard that player so nobody can have them. Then you'll pass your hand in typical drafting fashion until all the cards are gone, and you can have a max active roster of 5 players. You want to try and get different positions because you can't have 2 catchers playing at the same time. That's just not how baseball works. You can have any number of prospects that you want off to the side in the minors. However, those prospects want to play, and so they will be required to come up at the beginning of the next season. So please think about that when you are drafting them. We had one, just a quick tidbit, Ian. We had one game where through first two seasons, something like that, they were like, I can't get any prospects. Finally got a prospect. Of course, he took it, and then got to the end of that season. I don't even want this prospect. What am I doing? So just because you can take it doesn't mean you should take it. Anyway, so then there are a couple of other icons that are on these cards, which references for stages 2 and 3 of the season, which is playing team dice, and then we're going to move into a league dice draft. So first with your team dice, you're going to look on all the players' cards of your active roster, and they're going to have a certain number of blue dice. You're going to add that up, you're going to roll them, and then you're going to slot them into those square slots that I referenced earlier. Now, what you want to do is try and match them with the symbol that is on the card. Because if you match all of the symbols on the card with the appropriate dice, then that player is going to score their max number of wins. If you're not able to match all of the icons, but you do put at least a die on every single one of the slots for that card, they're going to score the base wins. If you don't get enough dice to fill up that card, they don't score anything. So it's very important to get as many dice as you possibly can. Once everyone's assigned their team dice, then you will move to the league dice draft. This is where you're going to look back at your player cards. You're going to see a number of red dice. Everyone is going to contribute their number of red dice to the pool, and they're going to all be rolled at the same time. Whoever contributed the most red dice is going to get to draft first, and we're going to pass the box around the table until all the dice are gone. This is a way of adding extra dice to your team to fill up those empty slots. Then we're going to evaluate regular season scoring. You are going to look at wins on your individual players. Your team is going to have a specific team ability, and your manager might have a ability as well that will contribute to wins. If you get at least 16 wins, you're going to earn a trophy. And if you have the highest total of wins, then you get a second trophy. And remember, Ian, the point is to get the most trophies as quick as possible.
Got to get them all. Catch them all.
Yep, that's right. We're not playing Pokemon. Then, once you've determined the number of trophies to be divvied out, we move into the playoffs, where you will take all the dice off of all your players, and you're going to roll them 3 times. This is going to have a little bit of a set collection aspect to it, where you're trying to collect sets of symbols to be able to create more playoff wins. Once you've done it 1 time, you're going to collect the dice that you want to re-roll, and then you're going to roll again. You're scoring wins through 3 rounds of this rolling, but you're able to hold on to sets that you don't want to get rid of. So if I have 5 gloves, I don't want to re-roll that. I want to score that number of wins every time. The only rule is you do have to make sure that you're rolling at least 1 die for each round of the playoffs. Once 3 rounds have been rolled and all the wins have been added up, whoever has the most wins earns a trophy. Then we move into arbitration. You're going to add $1 million to each player that you've already signed, or you must cut them and recoup their salary. I didn't talk about this at the beginning, but I will reference it here. At the beginning of the game, you select 1 team and 1 manager. The manager has a special ability on it or a way to score wins, and the team also does. But in addition to that, they also have a dollar amount, which is your budget for the entire game. So whenever you sign a player, you allocate some of those funds to that player, and it is tied up. But if you ever cut that player, then you're able to get those funds back. But there's really not that many ways to get new cash into your game, And so you are stuck with that budget for as many seasons as you have. So that's just something to think about. So then once you've decided who you're going to keep and who you've paid more and who you're cutting, then you move into promoting your prospects like we talked about. Before you start that next season, your prospects must come up to the active roster. And remember, you can only have 5. So if you don't have space for them, you must cut until you have enough room for all of those prospects. And that is a season of Flip Dynasty. So you continue to play that way until someone has scored the number of trophies required based on player count. And then that person is declared the greatest general manager of all time.
Of all time.
Of all time. Ian, what's something that you absolutely love or just draws you in on this game?
Yeah, I mean, overall, it feels like you're building a baseball team.
It really does, man. It's wild how good this simulation is.
Yeah, I mean, you feel like you're building a team. You know, at no point do you feel like you're actually like swinging a bat, you know, but you use your imagination so much in this game. I do. You're building this roster and you're looking at the positions, and you truly do feel like a general manager of a sports team in this role. Like, you're drafting the players and drafting from a hand of cards. And that's the free agency part as well. But it's a card drafting game. And so you're looking at all these different players and the position they play and the different techniques and skills that they offer, basically. And you're using these different strategic paths to create a super team. And so there's so many ways to do that. And one of my favorite things in this game is comboing the different cards that will piggyback off of each other in some way, shape, or form. As an example, each player is part of a team on the card itself, like Super Pals or whatever. Like, they have different team names for the players. And so one of my favorite things to do is to get a couple players that have played on the same team. I guess that's the thought process there. They have played on the same team. They're from the same team. And so they have these combos of abilities that kind of work together with each other. So we'll buff, you know, the other players that you sign of this team.
Same team.
Or other positions. Like, this guy is a pitcher. He buffs all the other pitchers that you sign because he's an all-star pitcher. And so I can imagine, like, he's teaching him skill, teaching him how to throw like a curveball or something. And so this comboing of cards is really, really cool within a game. That's why I love card drafting games in that regard of having these combos that you can trigger. But it also makes sense thematically, is that if you build this team full of players that have continuity or have played with each other or know each other's skill sets, they can play off of it. And so you're building this combo of players to help you build your roster. And so all of these, particular parts of the game create this overall experience that, like I said, you are building a roster. And I think it's just thematically immersive.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I mean, I almost from the jump was like, we're in a game of playing GM right now. And like, I don't want to say it's hard to do that, but in a simple card game, like, I was very impressed how quickly I felt like I was in the seat and making tough decisions.
Yeah.
And I remember, and the drafting part is so interesting because it very much feels like free agency, where if you're playing in a lower player count, you're going to see these players again. And so you're like, man, Bam Bam, are you going to come back around again? Because I could use you, but I think there's a better possibility of getting something I actually need that could fill my team better. But I want you to be there in case I can't find that better option. And in the same way, free agency happens in all sports. And you're like, well, you're a good utility guy, but I don't know if I'm ready to sign you yet. And so that was great. I thought the simple arbitration rule was so elegant. And honestly, like, for me, the whole budgeting system was my favorite part of this game, where you have a certain amount of money and that's all the money you get. And you can allocate that however you want to. So if you want to play Moneyball and find the best of the cheap players, great. You want to ride those 2 all-stars and have some chumps that are just being dragged along, great. You can do that too. And I just loved how impactful $1 million can feel of, man,
yeah,
I need you, but you're getting too expensive. Like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So that was definitely one of my favorite parts, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it feels very much like a fantasy team in a way. Like you're building this fantasy roster and in a dynasty sense, like if you play fantasy like football or something, like it's very similar in that regard. You get that same feeling, that rewarding feeling of signing and or drafting the right players, and they do well for your team. It's always a great feeling. And so you do, if you like that feeling of fantasy sports, then you get a similar feeling here of building a really good roster. You get that kind of rush of adrenaline, and I felt it while playing this. Like, okay, this was a great round. I built a really good team for this round. So there's these opportunities for, I don't know, just adrenaline rush when you build a really good roster. And I think that's a really neat feature inside this game. And like you mentioned, like it's kind of surprising of like it actually feels like what the game is saying it's supposed to be. And I really love the aspect of the prospects. The prospects is such a neat way. Again, they're these younger players in development. Usually they're not as great as some of the all-stars, but some of them are. And so I remember I have a very fond memory of this game, even in like the first game I played, is that I went multiple rounds. I built an okay team. I was struggling early on in the game because I was just couldn't find the all-star. Like they got drafted before they got handed me. I didn't pick them up in my hand. But eventually, midway through the game, I found an elite prospect. And so this prospect I put in the minors. I built some other pieces around it, kind of building for that next following turn. The next round, I scored like more than anybody, and I rolled higher than anybody in every category. I got all 3 trophies that round. It was such a good feeling, and I don't remember if I ended up winning that game, but I ended up doing fairly well the rest of the game because of that one prospect that I found, and then I was able to build behind him. And then I kind of was just joking. I was like, oh yeah, like I got this young kid in development. He's going to be the star of my franchise. And he was. And so it is funny. Like you start doing things that, you root for your own sports team in, is that, yeah, you got this young kid on the team and now he's the face of the franchise and you build the rest of your team around him. It just, again, it feels like you're a general manager. You're doing all the things that what a general manager would do. Again, managing the money part of this is really cool. I like the fact that there is no extra money. Like your club gets a certain amount and that's all you get. And now some of the abilities are different than others. We'll work around that. One of the ones I had, they had a good amount of money, but they don't have to go through arbitration for their star players. And so that was fantastic. Like obviously those guys already cost a lot of money to start, and so then to not have to give them any more, like you just lock them up for long-term contracts. So I think that's really cool. All of those aspects, again, like we mentioned here, it's just this immersive experience that really does feel like you're building a sports team.
Yeah. No, I another thing that I really liked is, so you have these dice, right? Dice can be a very fickle thing.
Yeah.
when you're impacting major elements of the game. But what I liked about it is just because you could get an all-star, you might have a regular Joe player next to him that's going to provide you twice as many dice, and you're like, I mean, you provide a lot of wins, sure, but like he's powering the rest of the team to be able to do actual wins. And to me, that was so cool. Like to see the way that you kind of have to decide what you're going to draft. Because I think like you were saying in the beginning with the whole baseball as a full team, not everybody on the team is going to be an all-star. You can't have an all-star at every position. But what you can do is you can have a team that's well-rounded and works together to be able to bring everything together. And I felt that in the draft.
Yes.
Like I was like, okay, I've got this pitcher and I want to load him up with a bunch of wins, and I got to make sure I get the right symbols to do that. But that means I need more dice. And so like when I came across a catcher that could provide 4 dice for me, I was like, sign me up. Like that guy's with me forever.
Yeah, for sure.
The other thing that I noticed with this game, going back to the money for a second, I had a deep appreciation for how hard it is to develop a dynasty, like long term. Because you were talking about like, yeah, we can build one season where like this team is awesome. And then you're like, crap, I got to pay everybody.
Yeah.
And you just can't afford to do that. Like eventually you run out of money and you're like, well, sorry, man. I hope wish you the best of luck somewhere else, but we got to move on.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, no, that's an interesting aspect because there are some players, there's abilities from the teams that you can have or coach that don't allow you to not have to pay them more money. There's also players that have long-term contracts as one of their abilities. Basically, you don't have to pay them, but also like that's like $5 million that you have to pay every year. That Now it doesn't go up or down, but it's just a steady 5. And so sometimes those players are like, they're good, solid, okay players. And so I think that was one of the games I played as well, where I actually signed 3 long-term contracts. So I only had 2 slots of other guys, but I kept those long-term guys, and I'm like, I will now just cycle through other all-stars or whatever around these. This is my core.
This is your core. That's right. Exactly.
And I thought that was really cool. So there is this dynamic of decision making. Do I keep these guys around for a long time, or like you're saying, do I move on from them, allowing new recruits to come in and build my team? And I think that's a really good decision making that happens in a game like this. Obviously, with card drafting, because you're seeing more and more cards. You can't just like have 5 cards every round. You'll run out of money. And so to have this balance of, okay, who do I want to keep around this round? Who do I want to keep around for the following round? And do I want to ever keep this guy here? Do I want to get rid of him now or later? There's so many decisions being made. I think that's really cool. But also you have, again, like the young prospects. We didn't talk about that. The prospects don't cost money to start. So they're incredibly valuable if you can get one that's like at least decent, because he doesn't cost anything the first time. I think when he gets bumped up for the first year, he costs $1 million. But
yeah, he starts to add like any other player.
Yeah, he starts out at 0, and so like if he's technically just as valuable as a $5 million player, that's multiple years you're getting on the rookie contract. So really good design there of allowing people to build for the future with this game mechanic. There's a game mechanic designated to building for the future, and I think that's so neat because, again, like you mentioned, you can't just sit there and pay the same 5 players over and over again. It doesn't work like that. So there is always this opportunity for building this long-term team.
For sure. One of the things I want to touch on that we touch on pretty much every episode is the artwork. And I love the it feels like baseball first. It very much has a baseball vibe with the artwork, but I love the leaning into the goofy nature of baseball. Baseball has a lot of weird dudes. And so to bring in the quirkiness of the funny names of the different teams and like the different, I don't know, like I could look through the deck and find some quirky names that they found. Oh yeah. Like one of the catchers, I think his name was like Travis Suck or something like that. And like there's just all of that. Like, and there's, I don't know, like over 100 cards to play with.
There's a lot of players.
Lots of players. And there was one player nicknamed Bam Bam. So just lots of fun stuff like that.
No, I think it's like, it's almost like this clash of like cartoon, blitz football vibes. Like,
it does. Yep. 100%.
It's quite funny. It feels like that. Yeah. The old video game characters with goofy names and thrown onto a baseball card, Yeah. It almost feels like, in a way, it feels obviously like the players themselves do feel like a baseball card of them, and obviously it's a card because it is, but it has this vibe. It has like kind of some information and, you got your details and stuff about them. So I think that's really neat.
For sure.
So anyway.
Yeah. What about, is there anything that you don't really care for with this game?
I do find it can be a little tricky with the dice rolling. Like we mentioned, the playoffs is it technically only gives you 1 win. So I understand, you get that aspect, but it does require you to roll pretty decent. Like you got to roll better than everybody else at the table. Like literally everybody else, because there's only 1 winner. You have to get all the wins and be the playoff victor, which makes sense thematically, but it is a little challenging when you could roll the most amount of dice, but if you don't roll the symbols, it is what it is. There's not much to do about it. So that is always a challenge, something to be wary of. And then obviously the luck factor here is a little bit higher because, if you don't get an all-star, if you're looking for an all-star and you can't find one because everybody else got to him before you, just a bad draw. Could be a multitude of different things on why you wouldn't be able to get the all-star. And I don't think you have to have all-stars to win. I think having one is kind of essential to really, at times. You can't have a bunch of 3 million players. That's not going to do it. You're going to need a couple expensive guys at some point because the max wins, it just doesn't get enough if you're doing a bunch of cheap players. And so you either need, the rookies or or a star player with some combos to really build out the max wins to be really strong. So there is that aspect as well. All of those, again, there's definitely some variability here and luck factor, but nothing that can't necessarily be countered.
I would agree. Most of the luck can be countered. I think I have two things I would pick at it. One is I kind of have a love-hate relationship with the prospects. I don't think the prospects are created equal.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of prospects like the one you found that are awesome.
Yeah.
But then there's
great.
some that are very much whatever.
Yeah.
And don't have abilities. And yeah, they're super cheap, but I don't think any of the prospects provide any dice. And
Not many.
I just think I think you need players that are providing dice for you to really compete once you get into those later rounds, once people are kind of developing their team and they've kind of got that generation of dice going. And I know that can change from round to round because sometimes you just got to clear out your team because you can't afford them anymore. But I don't know, that part I'm like, I like you and I don't like you and I don't know what to do with you. And if it's not like one of those 2 or 3 that I need to find in the stack of 120 cards, then I am probably not interested unless I've got an already loaded budget. But the other thing is I kind of feel whatever about some of the team abilities. Like the one I played with one time was, I forget, the Detroit Dirtbags, which was a great name. I was drawn to it immediately. And I love the concept of what the team is wanting me to do, where if I have certain positions of my 5 roster spots, I'm going to get a bunch of extra wins. But I went multiple rounds without even seeing certain positions that I needed. And so how am I supposed to keep up when everybody else has got team abilities that do other things that are constantly going?
Yeah.
So that was a bummer to me that felt very unbalanced. You can get around that a little bit. Like, you don't have to play with those teams. So this isn't like the end of the world.
You always have 2 choices at the beginning of the game as well. So
you do.
You did not pick that one. So.
You could. Yeah, but there are several teams that do something like that. So it is possible that you get dealt both of them. But those were my kind of beefs. I mean, most of it I really enjoyed. I don't even think I had an issue with the playoffs and dice rolling. Like, if you get a bad roll, whatever. But like you said, like, most of that can be mitigated to get you extra dice if that's something you're concerned about, to be able to remove that luck aspect to some degree.
Yeah, and I think for the prospects, like you mentioned, I think an important thing to note, like you said, there are some prospects that are significantly better than the other ones, for sure. I do think there's some other prospects that I think, as a general, if you're like, okay, I'm comparing this card to another card, they're not good. But I think there are significant, points of strategic elements here within the prospects that I was looking at. I was like, oh, I see why this prospect would be good. And as an example, if you place a prospect in an area or next to a players that, will buff him up, or he buffs them up, because there's a way that basically looks at each other's combos or the icons. And so I was looking at it, I was like, this guy doesn't cost anything. His max wins is like 5, and he only needs like 2 symbols. And if he combos well with this guy over here, or I put him next to this guy, man, okay, now it's 7. And now my team abilities plus another 2. So I'm looking at 9. It's like, yeah, then it becomes interesting. And so I think, like you said, some prospects are clearly better than others. I think other prospects are also very situational, but also can be really solid as well. And I don't know if those are just very rare circumstances where they combo well. I would say that as a general statement, though, on 3/4 of the players, is that there's a good amount of players that are like, okay, this guy's just fine. Where there's other players that are clearly better. Like, this guy has 4 dice. Like, that's clearly better than many of the other options.
Yeah, and there's just one of him in the entire deck.
Right, exactly.
So,
so I think as a general statement, I think there are cards that work well all the time, and then a lot of other cards that work well only in specific circumstances. And I think that applies definitely to the prospects, where ones are better than the others, and the others are just like, okay, well, I can make this work, but it is what it is. I think those are all valid points that you're making there. And yeah, with the teams, same thing. I mean, I didn't particularly like that one you were mentioning where it has the specific positions. I think that's really hard. I think if you played the game before and you were looking for a really hard challenge, I think that'd be interesting because how many wins do you remember? How many it gave you for
I
collecting
think
all
it
the
gives you
stuff?
like 5 wins or something like that, if I remember.
Yeah, that's man, that's gonna be game by game. You know, the game that
But
we
then, like,
played, like yeah, you couldn't find
yeah,
it, but I would assume like maybe another game you're like, oh, this is easy. Everybody's giving me the positions I need, so like
right.
it's just so random.
But then, like, I think the New York Moneybags, like, their thing is they get extra wins if you spend almost all their money each round. And so that's so much easier to spend all your
Yep,
money than
yeah,
to
that's
find these
easy.
specific players.
You're like,
And,
I
like,
have to spend 6 million. Okay, here's a six
bummer.
million dollar player. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So there's just, I mean,
absolutely.
it is fun that every team has a different ability. I like that. But at the same time, like, you gotta give them something to work with.
Yeah,
Anyways,
I think this game, yeah, it needs, and maybe a team expansion pack, add some more managers and teams. I think that would be pretty
it'd be
fun.
fun. Yeah. I
Or
don't know if
add
that's ever going to
more,
happen, but I
yeah,
mean, I agree. That would be fun. And I think that what you said was well said, of a lot of it is situational. And baseball is that way in a lot of
yeah,
ways. So it thematically, it nails it.
yeah, it
But
does. It
from a
does.
game perspective, at times you're just like, oh,
I know it is. It's hard to look at those details inside this game and be okay. Thematically, it makes perfect sense, but as a game, I'm kind of frustrated. So yeah, it is. That's the fine line of a super thematic game. You know, how far do you go that you give it that grace period? How far am I okay with taking this line? And so I think overall, like you said, between the art and those minor quibbles along with the rest of the game, I think they're definitely not taking it down very much to any regard. I think these are minor issues that we would take a look as far as a game element. None of it is thematic. There's no thematic issues here, in my opinion.
absolutely not. No, I honestly, I can just say I really enjoy this game. I have shown this game to a lot of different people, and I will constantly be like, hey guys, let's play. Like, we were at a game store the other night, and one of the workers came over. They're like, is this a game about baseball? And I was like, yeah. And not only is it about baseball, but it's about being the GM in a baseball dynasty. He's like, his face just lit up. Like, everybody wants, like, most people want to do this. Like, they want to be able to participate in something like that. It's why Madden has made 4,000 video games and they keep selling the same thing,
Yeah.
because that's what people want to do. But and like, I've pushed one of the conventions we're going to. I've pushed, like, hey man, reach out to the publisher. Let's make this a play to win because it's such a good game. So we'll see. But no, I really enjoy this one despite any quibbles I might have. And it's one of those things where, like, I don't take it too seriously, and I just, let's see how good of teams I can build in this game. So
Yeah.
it's fun.
And like you said, yeah, I think that's a good point there. Is like when you play every game I played, I've like tried something a little different, and I think it's really fun to do that and try different strategies. Like literally to be okay, I'm going to sign an all-star and I'm going to keep him for the whole game, and I'm just going to keep paying him, and then I'm just going to take a bunch of cheap guys. Or do I go like only cheap guys and just, find a bunch of prospects and see what happens? Or, you just have different combinations, or are you trying to sign all players of the same team, or like whatever. There's a lot of different routes you can go here and a lot of different ways to play. And then obviously with the managers and the teams themselves, you have multiple combos. The replayability here is high. And obviously you get this really good combination between, tableau building, tableau building slash card drafting, which is one of my favorite mechanics just as in general. And so, yeah, I think it's a fantastic game. And I think it does everything that it wants to be. I think if you really like baseball and like the element of fantasy drafting or playing or building rosters, I mean, this has it all inside of that. And also, it's got a competitive sense to it with the playoff push and all those different elements as well. So I think overall, like, this game is fantastic for anybody that loves card drafting. And, honestly, it's a little simpler than something like if you classic like Seven Wonders card drafting. Like it's much more straightforward. There's less combos to be worrying about. And so there's just, if you like anything like that, this is an opportunity to dive into a sports theme. And honestly, I mean, there's just not many great sports games. So I will always say yes to a really good sports game. And I mean, honestly, I'm trying to think, but this is definitely one of the best ones I've played. I'm trying to think of another one, but this is by far on the top of the list. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think the managing the team instead of trying to simulate an actual game is definitely the success point.
Sure.
The sports games we've played that have been more like we're trying to simulate a game, it doesn't work very well. But simulating a season or a dynasty like this, so good. So yeah, no, I think we've said it, but yeah, no, I'm with you. One of my favorite sports games, always up for more sports games and board gaming, and happy we got this one to the table. Sweet. Well, Ian, any final thoughts? I know we're kind of saying it here, but anything else you want to add before we wrap it?
No, I mean, we've said it all, honestly. I think it's just such a great game. Again, you're building a baseball dynasty team, and I think that's so cool. And I think that's a really good, neat design, excellent work by Tom, and,
by Scott.
I think, or
Tom was
Scott. Sorry, the artwork's by Tom. I think which Tom did great as well, but Scott did great, and I just think it's a really good design. And then the combination of the art along with everything else that is happening in this game, price point is really solid. Like all of these things are just a great game, and doesn't take a long time. I don't think we talked about that. I mean, maybe like an hour or less, I think, generally.
Yeah, it depends on the player count and how well you know the game. Like that first game is going to take a little bit of time because you're really reading over every card. But once you know the game, like it has a good clip to it for sure.
Yeah, I remember one of the recent games we played, it like clipped so fast. I was like, oh my gosh, the game's over. Jeez. So yeah, it's a really neat, again, quick game, a quick card drafting game is always something that I'm looking into and desiring in my collection. So I think this is a great, and then obviously I just know so many baseball fans, I think they would really love this game. So
Bad Flip Dynasty definitely hit every expectation that I had and then exceeded it. I found that I just happened to stumble across this game and I was like, this theme, as a sports GM, drafting, plays quick, like all this stuff, like it's screaming for us to pick it up. And so I'm very thrilled with it and happy that we got to do it and got it to the table.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we love small publishers. I think this is a good example of that just because, small publishers can get a bad rap, which I don't know if I always agree with that because they just don't have the resources that some of the other companies have. But the quality here is great. Like, I mean, the card quality was fantastic. The dice are great. Like, there's nothing wrong with a small publisher, and I think that's really cool. We should always give them the credit they deserve because this is a really good design, but also just the details within, even though, like, the player aids. I mean, this is a really good design in game, especially coming from even a smaller company. I think this is fantastic. So
for sure. Awesome. All right. Well, if you have feedback or want to give us your thoughts on the game, our podcast, or anything else really, we would love to hear from you. Links to all the ways to get in touch with us are in the description, and be sure to check all those out at your leisure. 5-star reviews, subscribing your podcast player of choice, liking this video, subscribing on YouTube, all the things, following us on socials, joining the conversation on Discord, all very helpful as we continue to try and grow. Special thanks to Ashley McCaffrey for cover art, to Anna Snyder who made the intro and outro music, and to Alexi Chistelin for how to play background music. Join us next week as we head back over to the kids' table. In the meantime, may your dice rolls and your card draws be blessed, and your experiences at the table be ones to remember forever.
That's right. And he hits it deep to right. He's going.
Oh.
It's going.
Oh.